In 1964, a carpenter in Grand Rapids, Michigan, cut every rafter for a hip roof on the ground, by hand, before a single one went up. No calculator, no tables, just a steel framing square, a pencil, and a flat spot in the yard. He stepped the square down each board, marked the plumb cut and the seat, and sawed. When the crew raised them, the ridge dropped into place with a gap you could not slip a dime into. That roof never sagged. 50 years later, when they re-shingled it, every rafter was still dead straight. That trick with the square is number 2 on this list. And the one plain habit underneath every cut he ever made, the thing his own father taught him first, is number 1. He was not a rare man. In 1964, there was a carpenter like him on every job, and a father like him in half the garages. A man with a folding rule in his pocket and a framing square hung by the door. These men could look at a board and a room and see in their heads how the two would meet, from standing next to someone who showed them once and expected them to remember. We traded that away for convenience. We were handed particleboard that cannot be planed, furniture built to be thrown out, and a contractor's number for every cut. That knowledge did not die because it stopped working. It worked better than what replaced it. It was buried because a man who can build his own is a man the trade cannot bill. Number 15 fits a piece of trim to a crooked corner so tight you cannot find the seam with a saw that costs $4. Number 3 joins 2 timbers so they pull themselves together and never loosen with a single wooden peg and no glue at all. And number 1, the plainest habit that Grand Rapids carpenter had, the one underneath every cut on this list, takes nothing but your own 2 eyes and a minute to look. It is the one skill here still small enough to pick up today. These 20 tricks were never just about wood. They were the mark of a man who could build and mend his own house and hand no one the bill. Not handy, free. Every trick on this list, that carpenter had in his hands. If that kind of self-reliance is worth saving, subscribe, and stay to the end, because the last one is the one that matters most. Let us count down the 20 lost carpentry tricks every father knew in the 1960s, the ones contractors pray you never learn. Number 20, silencing a squeaky stair tread. The stair announces you on every step, a groan under the same tread each time. The tread has come loose from the riser, and the two rub. You do not tear out the stair. From underneath, you run a bead of wood glue into the gap and drive a thin glued wedge in tight beside the riser, snugging the tread back down. Work the glue in before the wedge, so the joint dries solid, not just pinched. A handful of shop scraps and a squirt of glue against a carpenter's half-day call. The Grand Rapids carpenter silenced his own stairs this way, and his mother's, with cedar shims off the shop floor. Not a stair worn out, a joint come loose. Number 19, fixing a stripped screw hole. A hinge sags because the screw spins in a hole worn round, and no amount of turning makes it bite. You fill the hole back to solid wood. You snap a few wooden matchsticks or whittle a dowel, coat them in glue, and tap them into the worn hole until it is packed tight. You break them off flush, let the glue set, and drive the screw into fresh wood. A few cents of scrap against a new door and the man to hang it. The Grand Rapids carpenter kept a jar of dowel pins on the bench for exactly this, and never once replaced a hinge he could re-anchor. Not a hinge that failed, a hole worn loose. Number 18, raising a dent out of solid wood. A drop tool leaves a crushed dent in a tabletop, and you think it is ruined for good. If the wood fibers are only mashed, not cut, you can lift them back. You lay a damp cloth over the dent. You press a hot iron onto the cloth, and the steam drives down into the crushed grain and swells it back up, level with the surface. Keep the iron moving so you do not scorch the wood. The Grand Rapids carpenter raised dents out of customers' furniture with his wife's iron, and they swore he had swapped in new wood. Not a mark that ruins the piece. Fibers you coax back up. Number 17, making wood filler that disappears. A nail hole shows dark against fresh wood, and store filler dries the wrong color every time. You make your own from the wood itself. You sand the same board you are working and catch the fine sawdust. You mix it with a little wood glue into a stiff paste and press it into the hole with a putty knife. Finished over, it vanishes because it is the very wood it fills. Use dust from the same board, not a different one, or the patch shows. The Grand Rapids carpenter filled every nail hole this way and dared you to find one, not a patch you can see. Wood filling wood. Number 16, cutting a clean miter in a wooden box. 2 pieces of trim must meet at a corner in a perfect 45, and a crooked cut leaves a gap no paint will hide. You do not need a power saw. You lay the trim in a wooden miter box, a simple trough with angled slots cut through both sides. You drop a back saw into the 45 slot, and it guides the blade true through the wood. For a joint that must close on the face, you undercut the back a hair so the front edges meet first. Let the slot steer the saw. Do not force it. A $4 box and a sharp saw against a $200 power miter. The Grand Rapids carpenter cut a whole house of trim in a wooden box worn smooth by his own hands. Not a cut you rush, a cut the box makes for you. Number 15, coping an inside corner. Inside corners never meet clean with 2 miters because no wall is truly square and the gap opens as the wood shifts. The old hands did not miter inside corners, they coped them. You cut the first piece square and run it into the corner. On the second, you saw the end to the 45, then follow that curved line with a coping saw, back cutting behind it, until the end matches the exact profile of the first. It slips over the face and hides the corner, tight. Back cut hard, so only the thin front edge touches. A $4 coping saw against a corner that never closes. The Grand Rapids carpenter coped every inside joint in every house he trimmed, and his corners held when the mitered ones down the street cracked open. Not a corner you force, a corner you fit.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a man should be able to fix his own home. It's the forgotten handyman secrets, the old-fashioned repair tricks our grandfathers used to fix anything around the house and keep it running for life. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay a repairman ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 14, scribing to a crooked wall. A cabinet must sit flush against a wall, and no wall is straight, so the board rocks and a gap yawns behind it. You scribe it. You set the board in place, level, with its front where you want it. You open a compass to the width of the widest gap. You run the compass down the wall, the point riding the wall, the pencil drawing that exact wobble onto the board. You cut to the line, and the board drops in against the wall as if it grew there. Scribe to the widest gap, not the narrowest, or you cut short. A 10-cent pencil compass against a gap you would caulk forever. The Grand Rapids carpenter scribed every counter and bookcase he set, and you could not slide a paper behind them. Not a board that fits the room. A board you fit to it. Stop the count for a moment. Look at what these first 6 tricks share. Not one of them was hard. A glued wedge, a dowel in a hole, a saw guided by a box. Each took minutes and cost pennies, and each one kept a thing in the house and out of the dump. Now, look at what replaced them. In 1960, the year these fathers were in their prime, Americans threw away about 2 million tons of furniture in a year. By 2018, the government put that number at over 12 million tons. That is 6 times as much, thrown out by a country that had not even grown half again in size. More than 80% of it goes straight into the ground. Almost none is repaired, because the men who repaired it have nearly all been priced out of the trade. The particleboard dresser is built to last about 5 years and to be impossible to fix when it fails. That is not an accident, and it is not progress. It is a business model. A man who can plane a board and cope a joint does not buy a new dresser every 5 years, and that man is worth less to everyone who sells the new one. Number 13, the story pole. Read a tape measure wrong once, and the error repeats down the whole job. The old hands beat it with a story pole. You take a straight stick and mark on it once every measurement you will repeat: the stud spacing, the window height, the shelf lines. Then you set the tape aside and lay out from the pole, transferring each mark. Every piece comes out identical because they all came from one stick, not from reading numbers over and over. Mark the pole once, carefully, and check it twice. The Grand Rapids carpenter laid out a whole wall of cabinets from a single marked stick, and every door lined up like soldiers. Not a job you measure and remeasure. A job you mark once. Number 12. Sharpening a handsaw. A dull saw does not cut. It wanders and binds and blames the man. The old carpenter brought his back to life. You clamp the saw in a wooden vise. You run a flat file along the teeth to level them, called jointing. You set every other tooth outward a hair with a saw set, so the cut clears the blade. Then you file each tooth to a point at the same angle down the whole row. File every tooth the same, or the saw pulls to one side. A file and a set against a saw thrown away for being tired. The Grand Rapids carpenter sharpened his handsaws by lamplight at the kitchen table and could rip a straight line with a saw older than he was. Not a saw worn out, an edge gone dull. Number 11. Truing an edge with a hand plane. A board's edge is rough and out of square, and it will not sit tight against its neighbor. You true it with a hand plane, and the plane will tell you which way to go. You sight down the grain and read which way it runs, then plane with it, downhill, never against it, or the blade digs and tears. You take long, whisper-thin shavings, curling up out of the throat, until the edge is straight and square and clean enough to glue. Set the iron fine and let the plane do the work. The Grand Rapids carpenter could plane an edge so true 2 boards sucked together with no glue line at all, by feel, by eye, and by the sound of the cut. Not a board that fights you. Grain you learn to read. Number 10. The 3-4-5. A corner must be square, and a framing square is too small to trust over a long wall. The old carpenters used a triangle that cannot lie. You measure 3 feet along one line and mark it. You measure 4 feet along the other and mark it. When the straight distance between those two marks is exactly 5 feet, the corner is dead square. Use any multiple you like, 6, 8, 10. The bigger the triangle, the truer the corner. A tape measure and arithmetic older than the pyramids against a wall that racks out of true. The Grand Rapids carpenter squared every foundation and every deck with 3, 4, 5, and his buildings stood square when the ground under them had shifted for 50 years. Not a corner you guess. A corner the numbers prove. Number 9, toenailing. You have to join the end of one framing member to the face of another where you cannot drive a nail straight through, so you drive it at an angle. You start the nail an inch up from the joint, tip it to about 45 degrees, and drive it down into the piece below so it pulls the two together as it seats. Start the nail higher than feels right, and let the angle carry it home. The Grand Rapids carpenter toenailed a lifetime of studs and joists, and his framing did not creak or shift when the house settled around it. Not a joint you can nail straight, a joint you drive at an angle. Number 8, clinching a nail. For a joint that must never pull apart, the old builders did not reach for a longer screw. They clinched. You drive a nail clean through both boards, so an inch of the point stands out the far side. You bend that point over with the hammer, curl it back down along the grain, and set it into the wood. Now the nail cannot back out, ever. It is hooked through both pieces like a stitch. Bend the point along the grain, not across it, so it buries clean. A common nail against a fastener that lets go in 10 years. The Grand Rapids carpenter clinched the battens on his own shop door in 1965, and that door still hangs and has never loosened a board. Not a nail that holds by friction, a nail hooked through for good. Number 7, blind nailing a wood floor. A wood floor with nail heads showing is the mark of a man who did not know better. The old floor layers hid every nail. You drive each nail at an angle down through the tongue of the board, the part the next board's groove will swallow. You set the head just below the wood with a nail set, so nothing stands proud to catch the next piece. The following board slides over it, and the floor goes down without a single head in sight. Angle it through the tongue and set it deep, or the next board will not seat. A nail set against a floor full of visible heads. The Grand Rapids carpenter laid oak floors you could run your hand across and never feel a fastener. Not a floor you nail on top, a floor you nail through the tongue. Here is the part of his story we have skipped. The Grand Rapids carpenter did not come into the world able to step off a rafter or cope a joint blind. He started at 10 years old on the shop floor beside his father, told to plane one board flat and square while the old man built. His father did not lecture. He handed the boy a plane and said 3 words. "Read the grain." The boy planed against it and tore the face to splinters twice and wanted to quit. His father did not let him quit and did not do it for him. He made the boy turn the board around and feel which way the wood wanted to be cut with his own 2 hands. By the time that boy was grown, there was nothing in wood he could not see coming. The crown of a joist, the twist of a stud, the way a joint would sit before he ever cut it. He built and mended for 40 years and never called himself a master. He called himself a carpenter. And the first thing his father ever taught him, the plainest habit of all, underneath every trick on this list, is still coming. It is number 1. Number 6, hanging a door that swings true, a door that sticks or drifts open on its own, or shows a crooked gap, was hung wrong, and the old carpenter could fix it by eye. You shim the hinge jamb dead plumb first because a door hangs only as true as the jamb it hangs on. You set the hinges into shallow mortises, chiseled flush so the door does not bind. You plane the latch edge to leave an even gap all around, the thickness of a nickel, top, side, and bottom. Chase that even reveal, and the door will behave. A few shims and a sharp chisel against a door that never sits right. The Grand Rapids carpenter hung doors that latched with the push of one finger and stayed exactly where you left them. Not a door you fight, a door you hang to the jamb. Number 5. Plumbing true with a plumb bob. A wall or a post must stand dead vertical, and a short level held against a tall post can lie. The old builders trusted gravity itself. You hang a plumb bob, a pointed weight on a string, from the top of the post and let it swing still. When the string hangs the same distance off the post top and bottom, and the point rests over your base mark, the post is plumb, truer than any level over that height. Let it stop swinging before you read it. The Grand Rapids carpenter set every porch post and door frame with a plumb bob his father had turned on a lathe, and they stand straight to this day. Not a post you eyeball, a post gravity sets for you. Number 4. Cutting a mortise and tenon by hand. The strongest joint in furniture is 2 pieces of wood locked into each other, and the old carpenter cut it with a chisel and a saw. You chop a square hole, the mortise, into one piece, keeping the walls clean and straight. On the other, you saw a tongue, the tenon, to match, a hair fat, then pare it with the chisel until it slides home snug and square. Fit it dry first, and shave until it is firm, not forced. A chisel and patience against furniture that wobbles apart in a decade. The Grand Rapids carpenter cut the mortises for his own kitchen table by hand in 1966, and his grandchildren eat at it still, and it has never once racked or creaked. Not a joint you glue and hope, a joint you cut to lock. Number 3. Draw boring a joint tight. Here is how the old hands made that joint pull itself together and stay, with no clamp and no glue. You bore a peg hole through the mortise. You slide the tenon in and mark where the hole crosses it. Then you bore the tenon's hole a hair closer to the shoulder, offset on purpose. When you drive a tapered peg through, it has to bend to line the holes up, and that bending drags the joint shut, hard, forever. Offset the tenon hole only a little, an eighth at most, or the peg snaps. A single wooden pin against every joint that ever worked loose. The Grand Rapids carpenter draw-bored the timbers of his own back porch, and it stood through 40 winters without a nail holding it square. Not a joint you clamp and pray, a joint that pulls itself tight. Number 2. Stepping off rafters with a framing square. This is the one from the top of our story, and the deepest trick the trade ever knew. A steel framing square has the whole roof written on it, in tables stamped along the blade, for any man who learned to read them. You set the square to the roof's rise and run, and step it down the rafter board, marking as you go, the plumb cut at the ridge, the bird's mouth that sits on the wall, the length between. No calculator, no app, just a square and the numbers on it. Read the rise and run tables slow and cut one rafter as a pattern first. A $4 square against an engineer and a truss company. The Grand Rapids carpenter framed roofs from that square his whole life, and every ridge he raised came up straight and true on the first try. Not a roof you order in, a roof you read off a square. Number 1. Reading the board before you ever cut it. And it is the thing this whole list has been circling since the first minute. Before the framing square, before the mortise and the peg, before any single cut on this wall, the Grand Rapids carpenter did one plain thing. He picked up the board. He sighted down its edge for the bow and the twist. He read which way the grain ran and which face should show. He turned it crown up, marked his line by hand, and only then did he cut. Every trick on this list was really just that one habit, made specific. He did not learn it from a book or a class. He learned it at 10 years old on a shop floor, from a father who put a plane in his hand and said, "Read the grain, then cut. I'll only show you the once." Here is the part worth sitting with. Of everything on this list, this is the one thing no company can sell you, seal shut, or take out of your hands. Your own eye costs nothing. The looking is free. The tools are still on the shelf, in a box no one has opened in years. That is where the broken chain gets mended, not on a job site, but the next time you pick up a board and you decide before you cut to turn it in your hands and look. Not the hardest skill on this list, the plainest, and the only one still small enough to pick back up today. None of it needed a license. That was the point, and that was the quiet threat. A father who could read a board and hang a door waited on no one. He heard the stair squeak and set a wedge. He saw the corner open and coped it tight. He picked up a plank, turned it in his hands, and made it part of the house. Some things the old trade did, the world moved past for good reason. But the skill of building your own was not one of them. That was not taken from us for our safety. It was taken because a family that can cut its own joint is worth less to everyone who sells the cutting. We did not lose the tools. They are still out there, in a wooden box on a basement shelf, waiting for a hand that knows them. What we lost was smaller than any tool and larger than all of them. We lost the shop floor and the father standing over it, and the 3 words that turned a boy who split his first board into a man who could raise a roof. Read the grain, then cut. I'll only show you the once.